Hi, I'm Laura, and welcome to this session. So, train your mind to win, and this is specifically for athletes or coaches, no matter what your sport and whether you're an amateur or pro, whether you're an athlete or a coach. This is for you, where we're going to really look at the impact our mind, our brain has when it comes to our performance. So, I've got some slides to share with you, so I'm just going to share my screen. So I've got a little bit of a presentation here. So train your brain to win, basically mindset mastery for athletes. So we're going to look at the most powerful tool that you have, and that is actually your mind. As athletes, sports people, we train our body, but how much do you do in terms of training your mind to help your sporting performance, to help you take yourself to the next level, to help you ensure that you win and to perform at the best of your ability and to perform under pressure? So who am I? Okay, so I am a mental performance coach. I'm a therapist, so a solution-focused therapist. I use hypnotherapy as well. And I help athletes to train their brain so they can match their physical game, so their performance, so they can perform at their best and perform at their best when it matters, perform under pressure. So I'm a former personal trainer, fitness instructor, sports coach. I'm also an athlete and a performer myself previously. And one of the reasons why I share this message and share what I share and this knowledge and information is this wasn't available to me when I was a performer. And I wish it was. I wish I'd known this stuff. I mean, it might have been available, but I didn't know any of this stuff. And I was always kind of hardcore training my body, even taking any time out to do any yoga, meditation. I wouldn't have done it. And now I realize how impactful that stuff is and how important the mind is and how it can really help you. And really, it can help you give you that winning edge over your competition and take you to the next level. And I work with athletes, I work with performers, and I help them to perform at their best using what I call brain-based tools, so using our mind. So I spent many years, 10, 15 years, working with people and training the body. And over that time, I realized actually the importance our mind plays in that and the role of psychology. And basically, this session, I'm going to bring together practical tools and techniques that you can use and also share some insights, share some science. So first of all, let's get started. Why does the mind actually matter? And you might be thinking, look, I'm an amazing tennis player. It's all about training my physique. It's all about getting into the gym, homing my skills as a tennis player. What's my mind got to do with it? But your brain actually controls how you think, how you feel, and ultimately how you perform. And not just how you perform, but how you perform under pressure when it really matters the most. And you can have all the talent, you can have all the strategy, and you can have all the skills in the world. But if your mind isn't in the right place, then your performance will suffer. And you won't be able to perform at your full potential. You're going to be missing out. So you want to win. You need to be able to perform under pressure. You need to recover from things like setbacks. You need to be able to stay consistent, focused, motivated. And you need to train your mind just like you would train your body. And you need to put in the reps. And one question I always ask people, how many hours do you spend practicing your skill, practicing your sport? How many hours do you spend sort of in the gym doing strength and conditioning based exercises to support that sport? How many hours or even minutes do you spend actually working on your mind to help you improve in that sport? And one thing I love about this is not only will it give you that winning edge over your competitors, especially if your competitors are not doing this, and more people are doing this, so it's even more important to do this, but it will give you the winning edge. But what I also love is that whilst you're resting your body, because there's only so many hours in the day when you can physically train, you can rest your body and you can focus on your mind and give that your body a chance to recover whilst you're still then nudging yourself forwards and becoming better at your sport. And your brain controls things like your confidence, your focus, your motivation, and it controls things like your self-doubt. And even things like stress, it can be physical stress through your sport, but it could be personal stress outside your sport. So maybe you feel like you've got everything under control in your sport, but if things are stressful in your personal life, so it could be money worries, relationship worries, that stress will actually have an impact, and it will have a physical impact. So on things like your coordination, your speed rate, not just an impact on your mind and your focus and your ability to perform at your best. So your mind really is what separates good from great. And you might be good at sport and you might be great, but if you want to be the best and you want to take yourself to the next level, then working on your mind will really make the difference. And maybe you already do some stuff. Maybe some of this stuff is going to be completely new to you. That's great. Maybe some of this stuff you already do. But how much of it do you do, and how often and how consistently? Just like if you wanted to build your strength, you would do your reps, but you have to consistently, do those reps, increase the weight over time and things like that. You can't just go to the gym for one session and then see the results. And the good news is you can train your brain. You can just train your brain just like you train your body. So your brain controls how you think, how you feel, how you perform. And one thing I always say is A-class mindset with B-class talent will always outperform A-class talent with B-class mindset or attitude. So your mindset and your attitude will also have an impact. So if you feel like you're the underdog and that everyone else around you is a bit more talented, a bit more gifted, don't be worried. If you can really work on your mental skills and improve your attitude, improve your mindset, you will be able to outperform your competition, especially if they're not working on their mind. You can have A-class talent, but if they've got poor attitude, poor mindset, things like discipline, team ethics, that side of things, that is going to let them down. So your mind is key. And what I really like is it can give the underdog that edge, that opportunity. So people think that we're gifted, we're talented in a particular sport, particular area. I grew up dancing, and it was always explained to me that as a dancer you had to be talented, so you were just born as a dancer. But actually, that's not true. It's practicing that skill, practicing the repetitions. Look at somebody like David Beckham. Beckham maybe had naturally a good flair for football, but you actually look at all the practice, all the hours he put in, and the mindset and the attitude that he had alongside that. That's what has made him an extraordinary football player. So you can train the physical side of your sport. You can work on the technical skill side. You can work on the tactical, and all three of those are really, really important. But the fourth bit that quite often gets missed out, that is equally as important, and it will quite often give you that winning edge, is the mental side. I quite often picture runners. So picture a 100-meter sprint. People in the Olympics at that start line, they can all run. What is it these days? I mean, running under 10 seconds used to be amazing. I think it's now more, 9 seconds? So they can all run pretty fast, and quite often it's split seconds, that micro, I don't know, whatever you call it, that distance, that tiny bit of time that makes a difference between the person that actually wins and gets the gold. You see them all lined up at the finish line, and they have to look at it on a photograph or use some sort of analysis to see who's actually won. So everybody lining up at that start line has earned their place and has that opportunity pretty much to win that race. And it really, really is. It's a person with the right attitude that's done more mental conditioning that will win that race. And sometimes I hear people say it's the person that wants it the most. And I don't actually always think that's true. Wanting it is an important part of mental conditioning and having that desire. But it's a mental conditioning has a big impact. So yeah, I quite like thinking of a 100-meter sprint and thinking of how anyone at that start line has the opportunity to win. And it's quite often that the person, not just with the physical and the technical and the skill and the tactical, because they're all pretty much on an even playing field, wouldn't you say? It's the person with the mind that will give them that edge. So take a moment and think about what makes a great athlete. So you could think about your particular sport and list all the qualities of what you think makes a great athlete. So for you, I'm going to use the example of a footballer, but you can use your sport. So, a great footballer, they need the ability to be able to kick the ball well, to dribble the ball, to pass, good teamwork. They need good accuracy when they're passing or they're shooting a goal, the ability to defend if they're a defender. But they also need things like confidence. They need to be very, very confident. They need to have resilience and this bounce back factor, because as a footballer, chances are you will get injured or you will face things like rejection. In this day and age, if you're a professional footballer, you're out there in the public eye and you will face criticism no matter what you do and how good you are, and you need to be able to handle that. So can you see what I'm doing here? That the first couple of things I described were the physical and the technical and the skill and the tactical side of what's needed to be a good footballer. And then I've moved into actually the mental side. And that's what makes not just a good footballer, but what makes a great footballer. Moving into that mental side. So things like confidence, self-belief, believing in themselves, even when others don't believe in themselves. Handling rejection, overcoming failures. Look at basketball players. They have more fails at shots than they do ever wins. But that's part of basketball. You're going to have more failed shots than wins. But it's the wins that will count. So it's being able to handle rejection. So it's all the mental side. Now, let's do a little exercise just to show you how powerful the mind really is and how there's a mind and body physical connection. And that by working them together, you can improve your physical ability. So what I'd like you to do is close your eyes. Sorry, don't close your eyes just yet. Before you close your eyes, put your arms out like this. Okay, so they're just out shoulder height, and you can close your fist. Now you can close your eyes. And in your right hand, I want you to imagine you're holding a bucket, and it's a really heavy bucket, like a fire bucket or a great big metal water bucket. And in that bucket, there's several bricks and even a couple more bricks being put into that bucket. And there's some really heavy sand. And just feel the weight of that bucket. Feel the weight of that bucket with these heavy bricks, that heavy sand. And just to make it even more heavier, we can add some water into that bucket and just feel the weight and the heaviness of that bucket. Just feel how heavy. Picture that bucket. You're holding it in your hand and it's just getting heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. And focus on the left hand now. Now in that hand, or on that hand, you've got a balloon tied around your wrist. It can be any color you want to imagine, a beautiful balloon with the ribbon tied around your wrist. And this balloon is just getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And it's just floating higher and higher up into the air. And it's getting lighter and lighter. Picture that balloon and it's strapped around your wrist and it's just so light and it's getting lighter and lighter. And in your own time, when you're ready, you can just release the bucket, put the bucket on the floor, and you can release and let go of the balloon. And what you would have noticed is that your arms have gone here, and then you've seen a difference. And it could just be a small difference where the weight of the bucket's taking your right hand down and the balloon's lifting it up. It could be a massive difference. And it doesn't matter whether it's a big difference or a small difference. It's showing how your mind has a physical impact on your body. And this is why things like visualization are so beneficial to athletes. And the stuff that I talk about, and the stuff that I will talk about I'll try and keep some of the science a little bit light in this session, but when I work with clients, I like to explain the science. So this isn't just woo-woo or positive thinking. There is neuroscience and research that backs what I'm teaching up. Things like stress and mindset, that impacts coordination, reaction time, things like injury recovery. And you can see the mind-body connection. And the mind basically gives you that winning edge. So you might be the best of the best already, or you might be pretty good and you just want to nudge yourself that little bit further. You could be an amateur, you could be a pro. And can you imagine what a 1% improvement would do, or even a 2% improvement? Because quite often also when you're the best of the best, it's that getting that 1% more out of you, that extra 2% out of you. And this is what, if you start conditioning your mind and working and using some of these tools, and you don't have to use all of them, pick one or two that works for you. And it could just be 5 minutes a day that you start doing. You don't have to spend, it's not like when you go to the gym and you want to spend hours in the gym. And it's not when you're training your sport, you literally could just do 5 minutes a day and you'll see a massive improvement. But can you just imagine where you are already now? And if you could just nudge an extra 1, 2% out, but imagine if you could then do 10%, 20%, how much it would improve your performance. So we're going to talk about things like confidence, self-belief, focus, motivation, resilience, stress, anxiety, because these all impact your performance and your ability to be the best of the best. So just before we get started with me sort of going into some of these topics, let's think about some athletes who do train their minds. So Michael Phelps is well known for training his mind, definitely doing visualizations, and he's successfully won. I can't remember how many swimming races he's won, but he is a very outstanding athlete, to say the least. He's amazing in his sport. I think one story I've heard is that he definitely practiced visualization. I think he also practices things not kind of going to plan, but then how he's going to navigate that and manage that. So he anticipates what could go differently for him and how he's going to manage that, because quite often as an athlete that can be something that can throw you off when you're performing, and something doesn't go to plan, that can hinder your performance. But if you've already practiced what you're going to do when you face those challenges. So yeah, a story that I heard is that just at the start of a race, I think this is an Olympics, he, I think, pulled his goggles down and then they were filled up with water. And he basically swam the whole race without being able to see where he was going, and still won. And part of the reason being is because he'd visualized that race so often. Simone Biles, the famous gymnast, she's credited working on her mind and her mental health as giving her the opportunity and the ability to come back into gymnastics. Novak Djokovic, Tiger Woods, Kobe Bryant, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan. So apologies, I spelled Michael Jordan wrong there. Apologies. They're all, and literally you could Google it on the internet, look at different athletes, especially in your particular sport, look at who's training. There does tend to be different sports. Definitely golf is a big one where a lot of golfers do turn to mental conditioning exercises to help them with their golf. There's different sports seem to have more emphasis, but I think any sport you can see an improvement in your sport, in your performance, if you start using mental conditioning. And I think the good news is that if your sport isn't doing this and you start doing it, that will give you such an edge over your competition. And let's look at it the other way. What's the cost of not training your mind? And literally the cost of training your mind, it could be 5 minutes out of your day. That's it. And if the world's best athletes are investing in their mindset, why wouldn't you? And it's giving your opposition an advantage, especially if they are doing this. You will find more and more people are now training their minds. But it is a bit of a balance. It's becoming more common and more talked about, but there's also such an opportunity where it's not utilized to the maximum. People still aren't doing it. Some sports still aren't really doing it much in their sport. So if you're not doing it, you are giving your opposition an advantage. And if you do start doing it, you can have that winning edge over your competition. or even if you haven't got competition, you will see the improvements in your performance. Missed shots due to nerves, like you could be the best in your sport, but when it comes to performing under pressure, do you suddenly start missing shots, missing penalties? Do you start performing a bit inconsistently under pressure? Also, things like burnout and anxiety. So you could be pretty confident at your performance level in your sport, but understanding how your mind works and how to condition your mind into how to look after it will also help you avoid things like burnout, avoid things like anxiety. Fear of failure, I think that's one of the biggest things that holds people back, is the fear of failure. So imagine how much potential you could be actually leaving on the table because your mindset isn't quite in sync with all your other skills. So your physical, tactical, your what did I say? Physical, technical, and tactical, and your strategy, all those skills that are needed. But if your mindset's not there, that's going to be pulling you back. So what we're going to look at today is how the brain holds you back and how to fix that. We're going to look at things like confidence, how to focus under pressure, motivation, resilience, how to handle rejection, how to handle performance nerves, how to handle stress. And throughout, I'm going to be giving you practical mental conditioning techniques that you can start using today. And literally just pick one or two that work for you, and you can just incorporate them into your day, 5 minutes, that's it. Don't feel like you have to do all of this, and you might want to watch this video in sections. But I'm going to sort of briefly summarize each area and give you some tools. So let's understand a little bit about the brain. So your brain has one job, and that is survival. Your brain's job is to keep you safe, to keep you alive. Your brain is wired to protect you. It's not wired to help you thrive. It's not there to help you achieve your goals. It's not there to help you become the most amazing sports person in your sport. And that means that your brain, it avoids risks, even sort of healthy risks or risks that would be good to help you become the most amazing sports person in your sport. It clings to what's familiar, and we're going to talk about that a fair bit throughout the session. It likes what's familiar. It doesn't like change, even good, positive change. It exaggerates failure. So it focuses on the negatives, it exaggerates failure, and it's constantly scanning for danger. It's always on high alert. It's always looking for danger. And that can be especially when you're on the pitch, or especially when when it matters the most for you, when it's a big important game or event. So your brain, it's evolved to keep you alive. It's not there to help you smash a personal best or to win a game. And it's always looking for threats, and that can include things like criticism, pressure, or judgment. And that's also why you might freeze, why you might doubt yourself, why you might catastrophize under pressure, why you might think of all the different ways this massive important game could go wrong. But the great news is that you can retrain your brain, you can rewire your brain, and you can retrain your response. So let's understand a little bit more about the brain. There's basically two parts of the brain. There's what I call the intellectual part of the brain, and this is the prefrontal cortex. And this is the conscious part of the brain. It's the part that you are using now as we interact on this video, on this session. It's attached to the cerebral cortex, which is a vast intellectual resource, a bit like a computer database. And we call this the intellectual part of the brain. And when we're working from this part of the brain, it will generally get things right in life. It will make decisions based on a proper assessment of the situation. It will make logical, rational decisions. And it's generally pretty positive. And when we're working from this part of the brain, that's when we can be clear on what our goals are. And we know what we should be doing to become, the most amazing sports person in our field. And we follow through and we do what we need to be doing. But there's another part of the brain, and this is the primitive part of the brain, which dates back to caveman time. So at the cavemen, they just had this primitive brain. As we've evolved, we've sort of lobbed on and developed this intellectual part of the brain. So the primitive brain, the central most influential bit of the primitive brain is the amygdala, and you might have heard of that one before. That's our fight, flight, freeze response, and that can quite often kick in when we're doing our sport. It works closely with the hippocampus, which controls all our habits and our behaviors, and that can include inappropriate habits and behaviors. So that's where we store all our habits. So when we're consciously trying to change a habit, that's why we find it quite hard, is because it's stored here in the primitive brain, which is our subconscious part of the brain. And the hypothalamus, which regulates all the chemical responses in our brain and in our body. So the primitive part of the brain, it's the emotional part of the brain. It's emotional. It always sees everything from the worst possible perspective. It must do for our own safety and survival. So I'm going to give you an example of the primitive brain in action, and that's why I've got a picture of a polar bear here. So the polar bear. So imagine that you're walking down the street and you bump into a polar bear. After you get over the shock of sort of thinking, why on earth is there a polar bear here? Especially if you're in the UK, we don't really come across many polar bears when we're walking down the street. But yeah, imagine you bump into a polar bear. What would happen? So the first thing that happens is your anxiety shoots right up and you lose intellectual control. So we move away from this intellectual part of our brain. Our primitive part of the brain steps in to try and protect us. Basically, you'd get hot, you get sweaty, your stomach would churn, and you'd be off like a shot. And in that scenario, you would be pleased, and that's the correct response when we see a polar bear. But what happens is that when we get anxious, so day-to-day events in our life can make us anxious. So feeling under additional pressure. So in particular, when you've got an important match, game, competition coming up, feeling overwhelmed, or having an argument with somebody. So maybe there's a dispute with your coach or between the team, or even just a personal argument not related, outside of sport. Even having sort of an unexpected bill. Those things, they can spike our anxiety and our primitive brain takes over. And sometimes that can be a gradual process as well. So it doesn't have to be one particular big major event that strikes that anxiety. It can be a gradual, constant sort of drip feeding of all these different stresses that trigger anxiety and basically means that our primitive brain is running the show. And the primitive brain, it's useful for running away from polar bears, but it's not useful for running our day-to-day lives. And we don't really want it operating when we've got important games and matches. And when we're in that primitive part of the brain, we operate from very emotionally, and we respond with anxiety, depression, anger, or a combination of all three. When we're in that primitive brain, it's always negative. It's always looking at things from the worst possible perspective, and it's always looking out for danger. So, when you start sort of worrying about your match and what could go wrong, or when you finished your match and you end up remembering all the mistakes that you made and you forget all the good bits that you did in that game. And it can't think for itself, and it repeats previous patterns of behavior. And that can be why it can be quite hard when you're trying to change a behavior in your sport, whether you're trying to change a behavior in your team, whether there's a particular mental block that you've got with a behavior, with a movement in your sport. So let's look at confidence. So that's a little bit of brain basics. I'm not going to go into too much more for now. If you like that sort of stuff, check below. Sorry, I should have mentioned at the beginning of the session, I've got some attached workbooks. So check around this video. There'll be some links to a workbook that goes with this. And I'll send some links. There'll be some links that send you to other resources. So if you like the brain and you want to understand a bit more about the brain, there's a particular video that I've got where I go into that in more detail. But let's look at confidence. So confidence, some people think it's a personality trait that you're either confident or not. And you can be confident in different areas in your life. So maybe you are very confident in your sport, but now and then your confidence might waver. Or you might be confident in your sport, but not confident in other areas of your life, like relationships or handling money. But yeah, confidence isn't a personality trait. It's a skill. And the good news is, because it's a skill, it can be learned. It's trainable. So confidence is basically self-trust. So trusting yourself and having a little bit of evidence to demonstrate your ability. And then repeating that. So it's a skill. So just like you go to the gym and you put in your reps, you can put in your reps and build your confidence. So it grows through action as well. It's not through waiting to be ready. So quite often people don't do stuff because I don't feel confident enough, but actually you build your confidence through action, through repetition. That's why in sport it's really important to practice your skills, do your drills, and you drill them over and over again. And in particular, you can practice on things where you don't feel as confident and really improve on that skill. So a couple of things that you can do is have a confidence bank. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. A confidence bank, and that's where you start collecting evidence of wins, of strengths, of compliments, and progress. In particular, make it relevant to your sport. So you might want to have like a jar, a cookie jar, or some sort of tin where each day you write one win that you've done for the day, or compliment yourself on doing well, something well in your sport. It can also be outside sport because this will also help you just build up your overall confidence. Think of a compliment or some sort of progress that you've made. Or you could maybe start writing a journal. A lot of clients I work with, they find journaling really does help. So at the end of the day, they can write down something that they've done successfully in their sport, or win, a strength, compliment, some progress they've made. Another tool that I like is writing a confidence letter. And this is amazing, such an amazing tool. It doesn't even have to take long. Sit down with a pen and paper, write down a letter to yourself, and basically it's your own personal brag sheet. So you can brag at how amazing and all the good bits that you do in your sport. You can also brag about things outside sport and just brag about how amazing you are. And this is your own personal letter. No one else needs to see it. So you can write in, quite often in society, we're taught not to brag, we're taught to be modest. When somebody gives us a compliment, like, oh, I like that new top, oh, this sort of thing, yeah, I've had it for years. We don't accept compliments. If you struggle with accepting compliments, then literally 2 words, thank you. That's all you have to say is thank you. I'll be honest, I used to be the worst. I was terrible at accepting compliments. And it wasn't until actually one of my friends got really annoyed with me, like, will you ever accept a compliment? That it actually then shed some light. And then I realized, and so now quite often I'll just say thank you. And that's it. So you can just say thank you. But yeah, write your own confidence letter, write down, it's your own personal brag sheet, and it can go in your pocket. And the key bit is that whenever you are feeling a little bit unconfident, or when you've got something really important coming up, like an important event, important match, you can pull that letter out and you can read it. Or you could look at your confidence bank and go through all the things that you've got in your jar, go through that confidence bank and read it and read them out. And this is so powerful, and it will really help improve your confidence. So confidence isn't something that you're born with, it's something that you build. And one of the biggest things we build is through repetition. It comes from what you focus on. So keep a confidence bank, keep a journal, and capture your daily wins and your skills and your positive feedback. And your brain will then believe what you feed it. And it's really important to start feeding your brain the right stuff. So the more you can feed your brain positive things, the more your brain's going to believe that and accept it. Your brain, it doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. It doesn't know the difference between right or wrong, whether something's useful or not useful. It doesn't care what's true or false. It just cares and takes on board whatever you tell it. And it's a little bit like putting cream on your skin. So if you put some cream on your skin, it just soaks it in. So whatever you are saying and thinking, your brain will believe it and soak it in. And that's why, to build your confidence, you need to constantly reinforce, constantly be using positive words and positive thoughts about yourself and not beating yourself up. The brain also likes what is familiar. So the more we can make being confident familiar, and the more we can make, focusing on our wins, our strengths, our compliments, all the positives, the more we'll build our confidence. And that ties into self-belief. So self-belief, confidence, self-belief is also a skill. And like I mentioned, so basically one of the rules of the mind, and I've got a separate video where I talk about the rules of the mind. One of the rules of the mind is that our brain will absorb whatever we think. So basically the words that we use and the thoughts that we have in our mind our brain will accept it and believe it. So we get to choose our words, we get to choose our thoughts. Even if a thought pops up into your head, you get to choose whether you then believe it. So we can control our words and our thoughts. And therefore, it's really important, especially in our sport, when we start using positive words, positive thoughts. So we start reinforcing all the good things that we've done and all the successes, all the wins, and we start really focusing on that. And one of the tools, so this can feel a bit uncomfortable, and it can feel a lot. And so a quick tool that I like is using positive affirmations. So it can be things like, I am the most amazing footballer. I am the most amazing tennis player. I am gifted. I am talented. I train hard. I am disciplined. I am motivated. I am focused. I've chosen to do this and I want to do this. I believe in myself. So it's those kind of things. And I've got a separate worksheet where I talk about how to set your own individual personalized positive affirmations. So sometimes confidence and self-belief can feel a challenge. So one of the easiest, quickest ways to start rewiring our brain and building up some confidence is focus on what you'd like to be confident, what do you want to be really good at, and then make that into a powerful affirmation. So maybe there is something that's holding you back in your sport. Maybe your sport is a team sport and you're not a team player. If you keep telling yourself that you're not a team player, then you're just going to reinforce that and you'll knock your confidence, knock your ability, knock your self-belief. But if you actually flip it around and say, I am an amazing team player, I work well with my team, I care about my team, I love being part of a team. If you start doing that and you can stand in front of a mirror if that feels okay and repeat it 3 times a day, repeat it throughout the day, start repeating that and you'll see a transformation. You'll see basically it's like a little bit of magic will start happening. And some of this stuff, you don't have to believe me, and there is some science, but I'm not going to go into some of the science about affirmations, but check out my blogs where I talk about that. Yeah, just give it a try is what I'm saying here. Just give it a try, even if it sounds a little bit woo-woo. Honestly, this stuff works. I've tried it on myself. I've tried it on many clients. It works, so try it. And you don't have to do all of these tools all at once. Pick something that feels good for you and give it a try. So let's look at also linking to this is limiting beliefs. So we can lack confidence, we can lack self-belief, and we can have limiting beliefs. And they can be beliefs that we've built in ourselves, or beliefs that other people around us have kind of built into us. So it's limiting beliefs. It's beliefs that are holding us back. And you might want to take some time and think about what sort of limiting beliefs you have, what's holding you back in your particular sport. And you might be quite confident and comfortable in your sport, but you might have a bit of a limiting belief of feeling like you've got a bit of a ceiling here and that, okay, you're a pretty good tennis player, but you're not the greatest tennis player, and that's only available to other people and it's not available to you. That's a limiting belief, and maybe that's something you've built into yourself, or maybe something other people around you. A common one for athletes and for performers is sort of not having a financial backing, and they can feel that, okay, they're talented and they're driven, they're motivated, but they're missing out on the financial backing, and that to be successful you have to have that financial backing. Now, going off on a little bit of a tangent, and I can't talk about financial backing, but that's a limiting belief of basically feeling like to be successful is only available to somebody else. And you might then think it's because of lack of finances, or I don't know, maybe you have to hold down a full-time job and also do your sport. And there's other sports where actually they pay the athletes a lot more, so you don't have to hold down a job. But you can have limiting beliefs, and if you can find the time to think about what that limiting belief is, and it might be that it's not available to you, but it could be things like that you always mess up, or that you always crumble under pressure, or that maybe you've succeeded in the past, but you can't succeed now. Could be that you've got a bit of a limiting belief that you're getting too old for your sport, or you've got a limiting belief that you've got too many injuries, or that you're injured or have been injured, or actually your limiting belief that's holding you back is that fear of getting injured and that impacting your career. So yeah, limiting beliefs. So limiting beliefs, they come from repetition and from emotion. So we start repeating these beliefs, like a limiting belief in money, not related to sport, but in money. People have these expressions of money doesn't fall from trees, money's the root of all evil. If you're wanting to be successful and to earn more money, but you've got a limiting belief of money's the root of all evil, you're going to struggle to ever be financially successful. So that's an example of a limiting belief, obviously not related to sport. But yeah, you might have a limiting belief of that it's not available to you for whatever reason, that you always mess up. But these limiting beliefs, these thoughts aren't actually fact. I mean, when they've become a belief, you've made them, or you start thinking they're facts, but they're not facts. So these thoughts are not facts. And actually, when we start to challenge them and replace them consistently with more positive, more helpful beliefs, then that helps to rewire our brain. And neurons that fire together wire together. So that creates stronger, more helpful thought patterns. So we can actually change our thought patterns. One of the things that I like when it comes to sort of limiting beliefs is talk about it as a tell yourself a better lie. So when you are telling yourself that you always mess up, you're actually telling yourself a lie, aren't you? You're at this end of the spectrum and you're telling yourself that you always mess up. Do you really always mess up? Maybe you've messed up once, twice, maybe you recently messed up. Do you always mess up? Chances are no. So you're telling yourself a lie. And that's not a helpful lie. Constantly telling yourself that you always mess up and repeating that unhelpful thought loop pattern is going to hinder your performance. What's a more helpful thought pattern is that you are always amazing, that you have phenomenal coping skills, that you are the greatest, that you will be the greatest, that you've chosen to do this, you want to do this, that you succeeded in the past and you succeeded before and you can succeed and achieve again. That's more helpful. You're telling yourself a lie when you say things like, I always mess up. So just tell yourself a better lie. And actually, this thing at the other end of the spectrum isn't a better lie, because you will, through visualization and manifestation, this is going into manifestation, which not got enough time to talk about in this video, you actually make that become true. Have you ever heard the expression, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right? So if you think that you can't do something, you're right, because if you keep telling yourself you can't do it, you will make that your reality and make that your future. If you think that you can do it, you will also make that your reality and make that your future. So if you think that you always mess up, that is going to become your reality. If you think that you always succeed, that will become your reality. So think about the words that you're using, think about the thought patterns, and use ones that are helpful. Your brain does not know or does not care what is right or wrong, true or false. It just takes on board whatever you tell it. So if you're constantly telling yourself that you're useless, or that everyone's always more talented or better than you in your sport, or that you've hit your ceiling, then you're going to manifest that and that's going to become true. And you're basically telling your brain that, and your brain will work and make that become true. If you tell yourself that you are successful and that you're going to be the greatest, you will start making that become true. So tell yourself a better lie. Think about Muhammad Ali. He told everyone he was the greatest. He believed he was greatest. He told everyone he was the greatest. And at the time when he started saying that, he wasn't actually the greatest boxer. But he became the greatest boxer because he believed it. He told himself it. He told everyone else it. They all started believing it, and he became the greatest boxer. This is why our thoughts and our words are so powerful. If you take anything away from this video, that would be the biggest lesson, is to start listening and being careful of your thoughts and your words and the images that you make in your mind, and start making them positive, helpful ones. So fear is another one. It links to, limiting beliefs and lack of confidence. And fear, it can manifest in different ways: of fear of failure, I think as athletes, one of the fear can also be that we don't always go all out. We play it safe because we're worried about getting benched. Fear of what others will say. Fear of succeeding as well. Our brain likes what's familiar and what's comfortable. And actually, you see many people, they would find it easier to say, oh, I could have been a great footballer, but I never really tried. So it's always sort of saying, well, I could have done this, rather than to actually try your hardest and go all out and then actually not achieve it. People play it safe and they stay comfortable, like, oh, I could be an amazing artist, but I'm too busy doing these other things, so I'm not going all out. And they can always tell themselves that story, but actually it's more scarier to actually go all out and try and become an amazing artist and fail. But actually, if when you get older and you reflect backwards, it would be so much better to actually go all out and try and become that amazing artist, even if you fail, rather than to have always been thinking, what if? So yeah, and sometimes actually succeeding and winning can be pretty scary and fearful, and we can sort of basically self-sabotage ourselves. But yeah, fear of failing, fear of what others will say, especially now we've got social media, and if you're in a particular sport where people then feel it's appropriate to be armchair critics and comment on social media on your performance, that can impact your performance and it can hold you back. And our brain can sabotage us. Like I said, it likes what's familiar. It doesn't like change, even if it's positive change. It just cares about keeping us alive. So, fear. So how do we overcome fear? One of the biggest things to overcome fear is to fear something. Don't try and avoid fear. So people feel bad when they recognize and acknowledge that they're fearful of about something. It's not about avoiding fear and to never being fearful of something. It's about having that fear, but doing it anyway. I know that sounds a bit cliche, but it is true. You might have, feel like it's one of those posts that you see on Instagram, but have that fear and do it anyway. Focus. What you focus on, and this is another rule of the mind, is what you focus on, you get more of. So it's really important that you focus on great things. So you've got to really focus on great things. If you're constantly focusing on all the things that could go wrong, you're going to get more of that. If you focus on all the great things and all the things that could go right, of how successful your match is going to go, of winning your game, you're going to get more of that. So whatever you focus on, you get more of. So make sure you focus on good things. It's amazing how many athletes that I work with, and they try and do things like visualizations, or basically before a game, they start focusing on all the things that could go wrong. And that really hinders your performance. Once you start focusing on all the things that could go right, that improves your performance, it boosts your confidence, and you perform so much better. Also, when it comes to being focused, when you're focused and you're present and you're in the zone, and that leads to greater, more consistent performance. So actually being focused in your sport, especially, not just turning up and training and being focused, but focus especially when you're in the middle of a game and staying in that zone. Sometimes, I see it psychologically, where I've watched things like Wimbledon, and tennis players have lost their focus because they're not happy with an umpire's decision. You see it in football matches, and they lose that focus. So the more you can focus on and do some of these exercises I'm going to talk about, the more you can stay focused and stay in the zone and basically have a consistent, great performance. But whilst we're on the topic of focus, let's talk about focus. So I mentioned that whatever you focus on, you get more of. And basically, focus is like a spotlight on a stage. So wherever you shine it, that's where your attention goes. So but your brain spotlight is under constant attack from things like phones, worries, or other people's opinions. And this can really impact our focus. So the brain has a system called the reticular activating system, or for short, it's RAS. And basically, it's like a filter. And it notices what you focus on. So if you focus on messing up in your sport, then your brain will notice all the ways that you have messed up. But if you start focusing on staying calm and giving your best, your brain will then filter out what helps you. So have you ever noticed that you decide to buy a car or buy a new car, and you decided on a particular model, particular brand of car, and then all of a sudden you start seeing those types of cars everywhere? That's not just coincidence, that's actually neuroscience, and that's your RAS system kicking in. So whatever you focus on, you get more of. And that's why when you focus, you decide that you're going to buy a particular car, you suddenly start seeing more and more of them everywhere you go. And you can think of other examples. So that's why what you focus on is really important. Also, what you focus on becomes important. So it becomes really clear, sorry, it's really important to understand what your goals are, because then your brain, so our brain is constantly stimulated. There's so many things coming in and out. And so we need this RAS system to filter unhelpful stuff out. But if the brain is not clear on what your goal is and what you really, really want, it could inadvertently filter out something that could actually help you achieve that goal. And that's why it's really important to be really clear on what your goals are. So an example, this isn't sports related, but an example is you're single and you want to meet somebody, but you're not clear on that goal with your brain. Maybe because you're a little bit nervous about, getting into a relationship and getting hurt again. So you're not clear on that goal, and you go to the supermarket, you're shopping, and there could have been the perfect person that you walk past the aisle. Maybe you sort of say hello, smile, perfect person, but your RAS system filters them out because your brain is not aware that actually you're not happy being single and you want to be in a relationship or start dating somebody, and it filters them out. So that's why you've got to be really clear on what your goals are, what you want. You've got to be really careful on what you focus on, because whatever you focus on, you get more of. And working on exercises, like we're going to do one in a minute, will improve your focus in terms of staying in the zone when you're in a game, so you don't get distracted. So, you can see people get distracted because somebody in the audience has said a negative comment, and then that can throw your game. Referee, umpire makes a decision that you don't agree with. All these different things can throw us off our game and take us out of the zone. So exercise. Just close your eyes for 30 seconds, and you can pause this video and do this. Close your eyes for 30 seconds and focus only on the sound of your breath. So just focus on breathing in through your nose, breathing out through your mouth, and just focus on the sound of your breath. And if a thought pops up, just imagine it floating away just like a balloon, and it just floats away. And try and do this for 30 seconds. And even just this 30 seconds of focus training helps you rewire your brain. So you could just do this 30 seconds a day. And the more you practice focus, the stronger it gets. So like a muscle, so like we've talked about how you go to the gym and you do reps, the more you focus and just try and do this exercise, just try and focus just on your breathing and switching off all the other noise. This will help your focus. One thing that I did, so one of my sports is Muay Thai, Thai boxing, and I used to find it really hard to focus. I think some of it is I used to do a lot of long distance running, and when I used to run, I used to listen to music and deliberately stop focusing and try and switch my brain off to almost like tune out, how long I was running for and the impact it was having on me physically. So I'd sort of naturally tune out. Whereas when you're doing Thai boxing and you're hitting the pads, you need to be quite focused and alert and in that zone. And I used to struggle. And actually, one of the things that I used to do before sessions was meditate, just do 5 minutes meditation before I went and did a training session. And when on the occasions when I'd done that, I noticed such a difference. I was more in the zone, more focused, and would have a better training session. So focus isn't about trying harder, it's about creating the right conditions, and simple tools like breathing or tools that help to anchor your mind when pressure hits. So you can use them either before training or before a game or a big important event. So focus is trainable. So a couple of things that you can do is a reset breath. So you can do the exercise that we just did with the breathing. There's another one called a reset breath where you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. And then you can repeat this 3 times to calm and center yourself. This just calms your nervous system. And once you kind of calm that nervous system, you will notice that you feel a lot more focused. So other tools is you can try meditation, mindfulness, breath work. And I mentioned how important it is to be clear on our goals. So that's not about staying in the zone, but it's about your brain, the RAS system, not filtering stuff out that could actually help you achieve your goal. So yeah, there's some tools. So motivation. Motivation is another tool that's really important. Because when you're motivated, you keep showing up, you keep training, you keep practicing, you turn up to your games and you deliver and perform your best. Now, with motivation, people think motivation is this mythical creature that is just going to turn up at your door and knock on the door and go, hello, I'm motivation and I'm here to motivate you. And people wait for this spark of motivation. Now, as an athlete, you probably already have a baseline of motivation, because you'll turn up to practice. And you probably realize that you still turn up to practice even when you're not kind of quite feeling it. But you might turn up to practice and just go through the motions. You might have a game, but you're a bit distracted or you're just not really feeling it. So you don't perform your best. So motivation, it's not a mythical creature that's going to come and knock at your door. It's not this feeling of this spark of energy. It's action first, then motivation follows. So you actually do what you need to do, no matter how you're feeling, and then you'll find that the motivation follows. So you've probably noticed that there's times when you don't feel like going to the gym, but actually once you've got there and you started working out, you then feel a bit more motivated. And actually afterwards, you feel really good that you've done it. That's actually what motivation is. So it's still doing the actions, the habits, the things that you need to do, especially the things that you need to do that you know that are going to help you become the most amazing athlete you can be. That's motivation. So action first, then motivation. And the science and the reason behind this is because of dopamine. So you might have heard of dopamine before. Dopamine, imagine dopamine a little bit like a seesaw. When we do an action, especially an action that's a little bit difficult, a little bit challenge, that gives us this spike of dopamine. And that's when we feel more alive, a bit more happier, more motivated, and then we follow through. Quite often they say that the hardest bit of doing a habit, doing an action is getting started. And especially if you're new to your sport and your activity, this is really key. Like, people that try and start running, that try and get into running, the hardest bit really is putting your shoes on and getting out the door. Once you've started going, you find the motivation kicks in and it becomes a bit easier. So action first, then motivation. So think about something at times when you don't feel motivated. Think about a difficult task that you've always been putting yourself off. The more you do it, the more you actually take that action, the more the motivation is going to follow. And going back to dopamine, so I've talked about this seesaw. One of the reasons why we can become a bit demotivated is things like our phones give us, in like going on social media and looking to see if anyone's messaged us or liked our picture. That gives us spikes of dopamine, and they give us massive rushes of dopamine like this. But our body is like equilibrium. So when we get a massive rush of dopamine, it's going to come crashing back down. And that's why, if you ever notice, like it, for me personally, in the evening, I put my little one to bed and I'll have a few things that I want to do, like work, or I want to do, like practice my musical instrument or do a little bit of a yoga workout. If after I put my little one to bed, I then go and do the action first, I will then follow through and have a much more productive, motivated evening. If I then just say, oh, I'm exhausted, it's been a busy day, I just want 5 minutes peace and quiet, I'm just going to make myself a cup of tea and put the TV on for 5-10 minutes and just check my social media. Several hours then go by and my evening's been very unproductive. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes you need unproductive evenings. But what's going on here is that rush of dopamine and then it comes crashing down. But when you do the action, so a constructive, productive action, then you get more positive, more balanced level of dopamine, and you feel more motivated. So an example would be reading. After about 5-10 minutes, you get a nice burst of dopamine, but a more steady burst of dopamine. So you're not getting all these crashes. So if you're watching things like TV, scrolling through your social media, you will become kind of quite flat and quite demotivated, and you'll find it very hard to be productive. If you want to be productive and want to be motivated, then you need to limit that stuff. And that's where you get the massive burst of dopamine and massive crashes. So, but yeah, in the short, to summarize it, it's action first, then motivation. So don't wait for this feeling of being motivated. You just need to do what you got to do and get it done. And actually then you'll feel more motivated. An example I always like to use is, I put off tasks, cleaning, put off a particular cleaning task or cleaning out, that drawer where you throw everything in. But then once you get started, you feel so much more motivated, because you might say to yourself, oh, I'm just going to do 5 minutes. And then actually an hour later, you've done it all. So anyway, that's motivation. So sometimes we're motivated also by having a particular goal. So things like running a 10K, or for people that are doing general fitness, they're motivated by, I don't know, maybe they've got a wedding coming up, whether it's their wedding or attending a wedding or going on holiday to lose weight. You might be motivated when it's your peak season and you've got lots of competitions, lots of games, matches. So yeah, having a particular goal that can help us stay on track. But other times we need to rely on something a little bit deeper as well. And that's quite often referred to as our why. What's our reason for doing what we're doing? So on those days when you're not feeling motivated and you're finding it hard to white knuckle it and just force yourself to take the action first, it's being really clear on why you love being an athlete, why you love your sport, and what drives you. What is it you're trying to achieve in your sport? What drives you to want to be the best in your sport? And this is known as intrinsic motivation, and that lives inside you. And you could add that to your self-confidence letter as well. So when you're having those days where you're sort of wobbling and you're not really wanting to go and train, or not wanting to compete, or even you sort of doubting yourself and thinking about throwing the towel in, read that letter and read your self-confidence letter and read what you've written about why. So pause the video and take a couple of minutes and write down what you love about being an athlete, what you love about your sport, what you love about competing. What is it that inspires you, and who inspires you? What are you doing it all for? So maybe it's for you. Maybe you want to be the best. Maybe it's fame, fortune. Maybe it's leaving a legacy. Maybe you just love the sport, or maybe you've got family, children, somebody that inspires you, that you want to, sort of inspire. Maybe there's a particular athlete in your field that's been really successful that inspires you and you want to be like them. So pause the video, take a couple of minutes out and do this, and you can add this to you, like I said, your self-confidence letter as well. Keep it on you and pull it out whenever you're having those days. So, question for you. What do these people have in common? We've got Walt Disney, J.K. Rowling, and Michael Jordan. What they have in common is, and something that you guys are all going to face and we're all going to have in common at some point in our lives, is rejection. They have all been rejected. They have all been knocked back at some point. Walt Disney, he got laughed at with his idea of Mickey Mouse. I think, did he get fired from his job? People laughed at the idea of Mickey Mouse and said it would never work. And obviously, he's Walt Disney. And it's amazing the stuff that he's done. And think of all the things that we'd miss out if he hadn't have just ignored people and gone for it and gone after and carried on believing himself, regardless of people sort of rejecting him and being negative about his idea. J.K. Rowling, famous author of Harry Potter. How many times did she get rejected from that book? Once? Twice? 12 times she sent her book off to publishers and it got rejected. And I think it was the 13th time she sent her book off and the publishers accepted it. So, like we send a book off to publishers and they're the experts and they've rejected our book, and then you kind of think, oh, my book's just not good enough then. because they're the experts, they know. But and then we take it personally and think, oh, well, this book's not good enough, and or maybe I should give up being an author. You know what I love about J.K. Rowling is she kept going and going. And imagine of all the children that would have missed out if she hadn't have kept going. Celine Dion, one of the things I've heard about her that I love is that she sent like a demo track off to I think a record label, and then she rang them up to ask if they'd listened to a demo, and I think they said sort of yeah, but you know we're not interested. And she sort of said, "You've not listened to my demo, you've not heard me." And because she was that confident, it made them go and actually listen to her demo. And then they hired her and she got her record label. Can you imagine that? Just being like, you've not listened to my demo track. Having that level of confidence, but also that level of resilience and to be able to handle rejection. Michael Jordan, I think, did he get rejected? I think at university level, college level, and obviously one of the most successful, amazing basketball players. And one thing I like about basketball is you look at the statistics that quite often they miss a lot of shots, but also then achieve a lot of wins. It's part of recognizing that there will be errors and missed shots, but it's about the taking all those shots that you get the opportunity to take. So rejection, we need to handle it like a pro, because let me be honest with you, we're all going to face rejection at some point. And rejection, it's personal, it's not professional, even though at the time it will seem personal and it will feel like a personal attack. It's not, it's professional. And the industry can make some weird and wonderful decisions. Sorry, in this bit, because I also work with performers, I'm talking about here about industry decisions can be based on all sorts of things like a look, a style, a vocal type, and age, timing. And that happens in performance. And you're probably sat there thinking, oh yeah, that's just what happens in performance. But it's the same that happens in sport. There can be different reasons why you could be put on the bench for a match, or you get the last couple of minutes of playtime, get to play as often. There can be different reasons why you've not got selected for a team. And sometimes we're not privy to what the bigger picture is, but what we have to do is handle it like a pro and not use it as an excuse for an opportunity to just throw in the towel and just think, oh, we're not good enough. You've got to believe in yourself. You've got to work on your confidence and your self-belief, and you are going to have rejection, and you've got to just keep on going until you get those shots, those opportunities. So basically, when you're rejected, I think people take it personally and they think that that just means they're not talented enough, they're not good enough. But it's one person's decision or a couple of people's decision. And it doesn't always mean that you're not talented enough. You don't know what other reasons they've got for making that decision. And also, rejection isn't the opposite of success. I think rejection and failure is part of success. It's part of the pathway. If you want to be successful, part of that journey will be rejection. And it's how to handle that rejection and to not let it crush you and to let it empower you and to drive you to go even further. So I mentioned I do Thai boxing, and there's a Thai boxer that I like, and I can never pronounce his name properly, Wu Cow, really amazing Thai boxer. And I think early on I think he's pretty much retired, but he trains fighters still, maybe does the odd exhibition fight. But in his early days as a fighter, he's a very talented fighter and did very, very well in his career. In his early days as a fighter, I was watching a documentary and he said something about he had this competition and he was against the person that had it was for a belt, and he was against the person that had already had the belt, and they were competing for the belt. And he did amazingly, but the other guy got given the belt and got given the win. So we're fighting. You can win by knockout or technical knockout, or you win by decisions, and the decision went in the other guy's favor. I haven't actually seen that match, so I can't say, but from what I hear is that sounded like the decision really should have gone in Bukow's favor. Now he had an opportunity to let that crush him and just be like, oh, all this stuff is always rigged, it's so unfair, I'm never going to get my shot, never going to get my opportunity, that should have been my belt. And he could have just resigned from the whole sport and the whole industry and just thrown in the towel. What he did is he went away and he trained even harder And I think, I don't know this for sure, but my understanding of what then happened next is I think his belief was like, okay, I'm not going to give you guys the option to decide on who's going to win a match where it can then go against me. Because I've seen fights where, yeah, the decision's made by the judges and the majority of the audience are thinking it should have gone into the other person's favour. So yeah, he took it out of the judge's hands by basically becoming amazing at his sport and basically winning a lot of his matches through knockout. And that's what I love. I don't know this for sure, and I'd love to speak to him, but my psychology or my stance on it is thinking that he basically thought, right, you guys are judging me. I'm not going to give you the opportunity to, I want to use the word discrimination, but that's not the right word, to judge against me and to not give me the win. I'm not giving people the opportunity now. I'm just going to win and make sure that I always win by basically knocking his opponents out. So competitions could never not go in his favor. So you can see how basically people can use that rejection, that knockback to actually spur them on. So rejection, I like to call it, is redirection. And we have choices. Like I said, you can let it crush you and you can just give up. You can just think, oh, it just means I'm not talented enough, I'm not good enough, or this whole industry is rigged. It's all against me. Or you can just let it teach you. You can think about, right, what is this teaching me? What can I learn from this? How can I make this strengthen me and push me even further forward? And yeah, every no actually gets you closer to your next yes if you choose to keep going. An example. So imagine a newborn baby. So not a newborn baby, but imagine a baby and they're trying to learn how to walk. How long would you give a baby? Obviously, a baby that is physically, that they've not got any physical impairments that would hinder themselves from walking. How long would you give them to learn how to walk before you sort of tap them on the shoulder and said, yeah, this walking stuff it's not for you. Give up. Yeah, would you tell a baby to stop trying? Yeah, and you see like babies sort of going in, yeah, but they are still babies, not quite toddlers, are they? You see babies trying to walk, and you see them sort of try and stand up, and then they fall on the bum, and they crawl, and they fall over, and it might get to a stage where they can do the odd step, and then they fall over. Like, how long would you give a baby until you sort of tap them on the shoulder and said, yeah, let's stop trying to learn to walk? And some babies are different. Some babies can pick it up quickly, some babies take longer. And there's a different age gaps between how long babies can so would you tell a baby that they should stop trying and that they're just not going to, this walking malarkey is not for them? You wouldn't, would you? Exactly. You wouldn't tell a baby. And that's why you see a baby, they see everyone else walking, they're so resilient, they're so determined, and they just keep trying and trying and trying until they get to that stage where they can stand up, and they can stand up on their own, and they can take one step, two steps, and then, and then that leads to taking a few more steps, and then they can start walking, holding on to things, and then before you know it, they're walking, and then before you know it, they're toddlers and they're running around all over the place. Yeah, so you wouldn't, would you? And that's the same thing with yourself. Look at J.K. Rowling's. How many times did she keep going with her book? Because she believed in herself, she kept going, she had a goal, and she wasn't going to give up. So rejection activities. Pause the video and you can do this exercise. So write down one time where you were rejected and you bounce back. You've got this far and you would have faced some sort of rejections, knockbacks, whether it's in your sport or outside your sport, maybe at school. You've received some sort of rejection, some sort of knockback, and you bounce back. Maybe you asked somebody out on a date and you got rejected. Does that mean that you never ever ask anybody else out on a date? No, you bounce back and you learn from it. And you kind of remember that, it sucks at the time when you do get rejected, but you get stronger from it and you bounce back. And so you've got to remember that. So know that the next time you're going to get rejected, it will happen. But also know that you've handled rejection in the past, that you are strong enough to get through it and get over it, and that you're not going to let it deter you. And also you could have an affirmation. So this one more for performers, but you can tailor it to you. So I am more than one audition. I grow with every no. Rejection doesn't define me. My passion, my progress, and my persistence do. So it could be I am more than one audition. So maybe you do have to audition for your sport. I'm more than one match, one game. I grow with every no. I grow with every loss. You know, if you're going to be the best, you probably will face some losses. Rejection doesn't define me. My passion, my progress, and my persistence do. Rejection handling. So basically reframe it. Reframe it as redirection. Every no gives you some sort of feedback and it frees up some energy. And resilience is built in the recovery, not in the avoidance. That's where you can really learn some lessons, is in the failures, in the rejections. And look at anyone that's successful, whether that's in as a sports person or whether it's in something else. Look at successful people that where they've learned their lessons. Most successful people have had some sort of rejection. They've had some sort of failure, but also they will quite often talk about it's in those failures, in those rejections where they learned their best lessons and became better at what they do. So bounce back formula, here's a little formula you can try, is name it, normalize it, and then choose your next best move. Just choose to move on. Choose your next best moves. So setbacks are part of the journey. It's the difference between those who rise and those who stay stuck. And how fast you bounce back is key. And resilience and rejection, resilience, it's not about being unbreakable, and it's not about never failing, and it's not about never being rejected. It's about how you become flexible and how you handle it and how you bounce back. Okay, last little bit. Let's talk about game day nerves. Game day nerves. That's kind of quite common because you can be really, really good at your sport, but you can find that the quality varies. And that's because of sort of game day nerves. And sometimes it might not be every game, or it might be a particular element in your sport. And it's that performing under pressure. So, you know, maybe you are amazing at taking penalties, and during training, every penalty you take, it's amazing, it's spot on, and you train over and over again. But then when it comes to an actual game, a match, basically your performance, your game day nerves kicks in, and the penalties aren't as consistent. So it could be a particular area of your sport. It could just be your sport in general, or maybe you still perform well. But if you could manage your nerves and your anxiety and the game day nerves, and it might not be actually on the day as well, it can be those nerves driving up to the game. So a lot of athletes can find that they can manage it on the day, but it's all that stress and anxiety leading up to the day that if we could actually reduce that, we could do be a lot better in our training and ultimately in our performance. So it can be the build up to it. It can be the actual game day. So it's those game day nerves, and it can really hinder our performance. I always think so. I remember I can sing and I can sing a tune. I'm not trying to be a professional singer, but I remember when I was younger auditioning a couple of times, and I would sing, and I would rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and be able to sing that song. And then as soon as I actually had to go to an audition and sing, my stomach muscles would start shaking, and that impacted my voice. And I'd never come across that before and didn't even know that. And I was nervous. And this is when I was a lot younger. Nobody ever taught me any of this stuff. I didn't know any of it. And yeah, I was nervous. And those nerves manifested in a physical way and impacted my singing. So my singing was, you could hear it in my voice. It was very wobbly. And it didn't give me the opportunity to sort of demonstrate how well I could actually sing. And yeah, so that's where anxiety can really hinder your performance. So what can we do about it? What can we do about it? So a couple of tools that you can do is have a pre-performance routine. People that manage their anxiety, especially on the actual game, so on the actual match, on that game day, or when it counts, when you've got that audition or an important event, the ones that have a bit of a pre-performance routine, it's that consistency. Our brain likes what's familiar. So having some sort of pre-performance routine. So it might be listening to some sort of track that either calms you down or motivates you. It might be doing a bit of breath work, having a couple of breaths, might be doing some meditation, having some sort of routine helps. Reframing, so turn those nerves into excitement. So this is your big game. It's what you've been wanting all this time. It's what you've been training for. It's your big game. It's your opportunity to basically go and have fun. Go and do your game. You do your sport because you enjoy your sport. Just go and enjoy it. Do the best you can do. Go and have some fun. It's your opportunity to demonstrate and to put into practice all that training. I did this with exams. I used to get nervous with exams, and then I flipped it and turn exams, especially like at school exams, so talking about GCSEs, A levels. I flipped it, and it's like, look, I've been studying all this year. I've been working hard. I've been doing all my homework, doing my coursework, and I've been studying. This is my opportunity now to put all that into practice and to put all that hard work. So flipping it. Some people argue that nerves is lack of preparation. So sometimes it could be that you need, there's a particular area that you need to prepare. So I've got to admit, if I talk about exams, the exams I was more nervous about were the ones where I hadn't, I knew I could have done more. I hadn't done all the preparation I needed to do. But yeah, reframe it, turn those nerves into excitement. It's your opportunity. This is what you've trained for. This is what you've wanted. And you can start reciting some of those positive affirmations. Have some positive affirmations already prepared and start repeating them. So, I've chosen to do this. I want to do this. I'm gifted. I'm talented. I'm amazing at insert whatever sport it is that you're doing. This is going to be an amazing game. I'm excited. I want to do this. So those feelings in your stomach where you feel the nerves and the butterflies, turn that into excitement. It's not nerves, it's excitement, and it's an amazing opportunity. It's a privilege to get to do what you want to do, to be competing in that match. And for me, one thing that always takes some pressure off my shoulders is basically try your best and forget the rest. So, you can't change anything now. Just try your best and forget the rest. So just do the best you can do. Again, going back to exams, when you're walking in to sit down and take that exam, you can't do any more. It's now all you can do is just try your best. So there's no point in reflecting and looking back and like, oh, I forgot to look at this chapter, or I missed doing this, or I should have spent some more hours, or I shouldn't have been watching TV when I should have been, all that stuff. Forget it. That's not helpful. Try your best and forget the rest. So focus on what you're going into and just forget everything and just relax, enjoy it, and just try your best. And all you can do is do your best. Visualization, that's a really powerful one. So positive affirmations are so powerful. You can do them heading up to the game, and you can do them before the game. You can do them during the game. And visualization equally. So picture your game, your match, your event. Picture it going as amazingly as it possibly could. Picture it just going well. You're turning up feeling full of energy, feeling on your best form. You've done all your training. You know that everything's in place. And just picture it going as perfectly as it could be, and do this visualization. Spend 5-10 minutes a day and do it. Make it really visual, make it really powerful, and make sure it's positive visualization. So don't be allowing that primitive brain to step in and to be thinking of all the things that could go wrong, and to allow it to think of, basically, say you've got a tennis match, to allow your brain to start thinking of all the negative things that could go wrong in that tennis match and all the games. Think of it going as positively and as well as it could. If you do, so I've worked with some athletes and they do find it hard, and or sometimes find that their brain sort of starts thinking negatively. Then start overcoming it. So like I said, Michael Phelps used to visualize things, but he used to also visualize challenges and then visualize how he'd then handle that challenge. I think that's definitely important for things like Thai boxing or any kind of sort of MMA fighting, because you can do all the training and preparation, but you can't control what your opponent's going to do. And sometimes if you're not prepared, that can really flummox you and really throw you out of the zone and really throw you off your sport. So if you kind of visualize and prepare what might distract you, and then how you're then going to handle it. So flip it into a positive, then that will help. But yeah, spend some time visualizing it, make it really clear. If you struggle with this sort of stuff, you could find a visualization online that's designed for your sport, or find another guided visualization. I will have some on my website as well. This is why I like hypnotherapy. So I use hypnosis. So I'll sit with a client and we will write together. We'll talk about an event that's coming up, like that, their match coming up, and we'll talk about everything. So what they're going to do beforehand, where they're going to be, talk about having their breakfast, what time they leave the house, talk about how entering their venue for their match, and then talk about how that match is going to go, and then talk about how it's going to finish. We'll get a nice, clear story. And then at hypnosis, I will repeat that story. So it's a little bit like visualization, but even more powerful. And I'm basically guiding them through that hypnosis and making it really clear and very visual. And then making them feel how they want to feel. So making them feel confident, believe in themselves, making them feel motivated and focused, and to bringing out all those wonderful emotions and how they want to feel. And it's really powerful, really transformative, and it really works. And it's especially great for people that struggle a little bit with visualization, where when they're left to it, their brain can wander off and either get distracted or start negatively visualizing things. So yeah, hypnosis is so powerful. And I use hypnosis just to generally calm people down. So that can be great just before something's important, or it helps them with their personal life as well, to empty that stress bucket so they can really focus on their game and performing at their best. But hypnosis, we can also do it where we picture a particular event. So if they've got a particular race, particular match, we picture it going amazingly and then performing at their best, and then actually that helps that then materialize, and it helps sort of manage any sort of game day nerves. So let's have a little bit of a recap. So I've sort of shared some stuff, shared why it's really important to do some mental conditioning alongside all that other training if we want to become the best of the best in our sport. Talked about a couple of key areas, and then some of it I've shared some insights on the neuroscience behind it. If you like some of the neuroscience, then check out my blogs and other videos where I go a little bit deeper into some of the neuroscience, but I tried to keep it brief as possible for now. And the key thing is that it's really the tools. So just go away and practice some of these tools, and they literally 5-10 minutes out your day. Now, I've tried to share a lot, so don't feel overwhelmed. There's quite a few tools. Pick an area that you want to focus on. So is it confidence? Is it rejection handling? Pick an area, or just pick a tool that you've heard me mention that you think, oh, actually, yeah, I'd give that a shot. Or even better, if there's one way you're thinking, what is she on about? Pick that tool, give it a try. So if you're doubting me, trust me, or just, go in. So before you completely doubt me, go and try it and see the transformation it will make. This is stuff that I've used on myself. This is stuff that I've used on other clients. So I know it works. And it also has the science to support it by explaining how the brain works. And it also has the research that shows it works. So confidence bank, confidence ladder, positive affirmations. I've got a workbook that I talk about affirmations, so make sure you access that workbook, and I'll show you how to do your own positive, individual, bespoke affirmations that work for you. Visualization, that's really powerful, and hypnosis, manifestation. There's probably not enough time to talk about manifestation, but yeah, that really helps. Reset breath, so definitely our breathing. So breathe before training, breathe before an important match game, breathe during it, breathe after it as well, because quite often we've got all that cortisol and adrenaline pumping around, and we just need to calm everything back down. Belief rewire, so challenge all those limiting beliefs, whether it's something that you've put into your head or something that somebody else has put into your head. Challenge those limiting beliefs that are holding you back. Bounce back formula. So recognizing that, rejection is just redirection and just learning to bounce back from it. Finding things that help you focus. And yeah, positive visualization. Pre-performance routine, I think that is really helpful, having a bit of a routine. There's lots of research showing how doing some sort of priming makes a big difference. So you might have come across Tony Robbins. If you haven't, look at Tony Robbins and his priming routine. That's not just designed for athletes, but it's just designed to kind of get you going for the day and have a productive day. Because and it changes basically priming, so moving your body, having some energy. So things like having your arms up in the air, listening to music, some sort of positive music. I was talking to an athlete the other day, and one of the things that their team started doing is some sort of like dance, especially when they've got competitions, matches first thing in the morning, and they have to be up at like 5 a.m. They do something a coach introduced from his background, like a bit of a tribal kind of dance. And basically that effectively is some sort of form of priming. So yeah, moving the body, moving it and priming it, giving it some energy, positive dance, positive music that's got positive words, that gets you moving. And you can incorporate that as just something like pre-training routine or pre-performance routine. And yeah, hypnotherapy. Honestly, hypnotherapy is really powerful. So I mentioned at the beginning that I've spent 10, 15 years training people on the physical side, working with, athletes, non-athletes, working with performers, aerialists, dancers. And then I realized the impact of the psychology. And obviously I love psychology, and even just this video that's quite long, and I've only scratched the surface of some of the psychology. Now, as an athlete, you might not want to learn all that psychology. You just need quick, effective, fast tools that work. And this is why I like hypnotherapy. And this is why I trained as a hypnotherapist. Because although I like psychology and I could spend years studying it and I could spend hours and days talking about it to other people because I love it, not every athlete is going to love it and wants to really learn the ins and outs of psychology. They just want effective tools. And that's why I like hypnotherapy, because it's an effective tool that can really elevate your performance. In particular, what I was talking about, that particular hypnosis, where we plan how amazing your next game is going to be, your match, or even if you've got like a mental blocker or there's a particular movement exercise in your sport that's holding you back. We plan it, we talk about it and talk about it going amazingly. So at this end of the spectrum, going amazingly positively. And then we put you in hypnosis, and then we recap on some of the stuff that we've talked about. And basically it's like visualization, but more effective because you're following it and listening to the words and you're in hypnosis. Anyway, so yeah, hypnotherapy, really amazing. So even if you just pick one or two of these and you consistently change it, maybe pick one, try it for a week or two, see the positive transformation, stick with it, and then introduce another one. It helps. It depends what it is that you really feel like you need to focus on. Is it confidence? Is it resilience? Is it focus? Is it motivation? And then, yeah, these are a few other things. So basically, you want like a metaphorical toolkit and just focus on one thing and then keep adding up those tools. So these are a couple of things. And if there's a particular area that you're interested in, like mindfulness or affirmations, manifestation, goal setting, goal getting, have a look through my website. Because I'll go deeper. So check me out on YouTube or check out on my website, my blog post where I go into deeper in a particular topic. Or if I haven't got it, ask ChatGPT or go on YouTube and just Google it. If you like the idea of affirmations or manifestations or writing a gratitude diary, have a look on the internet, because there'll be some people that will go deeper, or reach out to me. I can signpost you in the direction of some free resources that I'll have that helps you. So one final thought, and when I heard this, for me, this was so powerful. And this is a final sort of powerful thought that I want to leave you with. And it comes from Bill Beswick. And he says that there are 5 types of athletes. So there's the athletes who just show up and they go through the motions. There's the athletes who show up to training and they work hard. There's the athletes who show up to training, they work hard, and they compete with themselves and with others. Then there's the athletes who train to win. They train every session to win when it counts. And then finally, there's the athletes, the very few athletes who train to dominate. And basically, they train so hard that winning is inevitable. So you can imagine training so hard that you've put in all those reps, all that training, that when it comes to competition time, you dominate it, because winning is basically, it's fun for you now because you've done all that training, all that work, and you just dominate. Winning is inevitable. And for me, I found that really powerful. And ask yourself that question when you're training next. Which one are you? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? And yeah, let's be honest, there'll be days when you're not feeling it. And there might be some days when you do need to take it easier because you feeling poorly or injured. But yeah, this makes you think that, are you just training? Are you just turning up and going through the motions? Are you training and competing against yourself and trying to be a little bit better than last training session? Are you training because you want to win? And are you training because you want to dominate? And it's the ones that number 5, they're the ones that aren't just good athletes. They're the best athletes. They're on another level. Anyway, so next steps. Thank you for watching this video. There's so much stuff that I want to share. I know it's a long one. That was the plan, to try and cover quite a lot of topics in one session. If there's a particular topic you like I said, I go deeper into it in some other resources. So you can either find it on my website, www.laurabeadle.com, or just drop me an email, which is laura@laurabeadle.com, and ask away. I'd love to hear from you. Did you find this helpful? What particular area are you struggling with? And I can signpost you to some free resources that help you. If you're on social media, I'm on Instagram, Laura Beadle Therapy. I'm on LinkedIn, Laura Beadle, Facebook, Laura Beadle, YouTube, Laura Beadle Therapy. And basically, I work with people one-to-one. I work with athletes, amateur or pro, and I work with coaches as well. And I either work one-to-one or I can work with groups. So if you would like to talk to me and find out how we can work together, how I can help you, hopefully you now understand the power of mental conditioning and how it can just elevate your performance and take you to the next level. It can give you that winning edge. It can give you the opportunity to dominate, to succeed, to win. So if you want that, if you want to win, and you realize the power of your mind and how that can give you that edge and elevate, then do reach out. So like I said, I work with one-to-one. I can work with you online. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. We can still work together. And I can also work with coaches, whether coaches you're struggling with your team, there's a particular area in your team that they're struggling with confidence or something, I can work with you and give you some tools and ideas that you can be working with your team on, or we can do like some workshops together for your team and focus on particular things like confidence and motivation, resilience. One thing that I've noticed with, depending on different countries, some countries, like in some sports, people take more risks and it can make them a little bit more successful. Other sports and other countries I've seen, so in the UK, in a particular sport, the athletes were nervous about getting benched, so they performed, but they didn't take sort of healthy risks that could actually have made the team more successful. They didn't want to take the risks. So anyway, mindset, mental conditioning, the brain, understanding how that works, it is truly powerful. It's truly fascinating as well. I hope you found this interesting. But yeah, it's not just about learning it. It's more about putting some of this stuff in action. So pick one of those tools, put it in action, reach out to me and let me know how it's impacted you and how it's helped you, because it will. And yeah, if you want to go deeper, lots of free resources either on my website or on my social media platforms, or reach out to me and we can have a bit of a chat. I can answer any questions, help you with any challenges that you are facing. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope you find it helpful. And yeah, keep me posted. Keep me posted on your journey, because I would love to hear. I can stop sharing the slides, can't I? And then you can actually see me full on. I'd love to yeah, hear how this has impacted you and helped your journey, because I know it will, and it will help your performance. Also, I should have said this at the beginning, some of the stuff that I'm sharing, it's not just about getting you to become the most amazing athlete. And when I work with athletes on a one-to-one, yes, I want to help them get the best out of themselves and become the best athlete they have the potential to be. But equally, it's setting them up for other skills in their day-to-day lives. So it's some of the stuff that I teach and the skills that we develop through our journey working together, it can be used in other areas of their life and really help them. And again, as athletes, that's sometimes things that we struggle with because we get so focused on our sport that other areas of our life can suffer. Or in our journey as a sports person, sometimes we change direction. So we move from being from competing, maybe we move into coaching, or maybe we transition out of the sport and into another industry, another role, and it's helping through those sort of mental challenges as we transition and change. And a lot of stuff that I work with athletes on now will help them and set them up for success in the future in other areas in their life, not just in their sport. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it helpful. Do check out some more of my videos, some more of my blog posts. This is kind of like a bit of a whistle-stop tour. Each of those topics, I've got more detailed videos, more detailed workbooks that will help you. All right, take care. Bye.